All right, we do it every Monday, even with no games. I got enough opinions where sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. Rick Riley in 15 minutes joining me. Let's go, John.
Where Colin was right?
Well, the Chicago Bears admitted finally on Friday, General Manager Ryan Pace said, yeah, Nick Foles, Mitch Trubisky, open competition. Okay, I got nothing against Mitch Trubisky. Joy and I always say this, it's not personal. But he's not a number 2 pick in the draft. How they picked him over Deshaun Watson, and I thought Deshaun was a B-plus prospect, not an A. He's a whiff. He threw for 3,100 yards last year. That's with, Matt Nagy, who I think is one of the really clever offensive play callers in the NFL. And Chicago fans, nobody wants to admit your franchise quarterback's not very good. And Chicago fans, I think, have reluctantly, privately have acknowledged we whiffed on this. But the GM who picked him, when the GM who picks a quarterback admits, yeah, we just brought in Nick Foles, and it's an open competition. What that tells you, by the way, is Nick Foles is going to be the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears in September.
Where Colin was wrong.
Multiple stories now. The Miami Dolphins prefer Joe Burrow over Tua and are willing to give up half a dozen picks to get him. I'm more of a Tua guy than a Burrow guy. There's medical concerns, obviously. But the people I talked to this weekend, they are freaking out over Tua's injuries. Now, I don't think he's going to drop to 20, even 15. But Joe Burrow, it should be noted, is preferred by the people I talk to in the NFL. They like Burrow more than Tua, all but one of the people I talk to. Now, they don't think Burrow is Troy Aikman. They think he's Tony Romo, not Troy Aikman. Okay, but, Burrow is now overwhelmingly, I would say this, the choice of the NFL executives I talk to.
Where Colin was right?
Well, late last week, the New England Patriots sourced that they're not interested really in any quarterback. They're going to go with Jarrett Stidham, who, by the way, Todd McShay said about Jarrett Stidham this morning, and he is connected to the Patriots, quote, Stidham is not ready to be a franchise quarterback in the NFL yet, unquote. That was Todd McShay this morning. So the Patriots released their Hall of Fame kicker. He will be 2 of their best playmaking, smartest veteran linebackers, and they're going to go with a guy that's not ready. It's not tanking. It's repositioning. They're going to get 3 compensatory picks next year for Collins, Van Noy, and Brady. They're going to move a handful of picks this year to next year. They're going to go into next year's draft with 14 or 15 picks and trade 8 of them to get a quarterback, and somebody's going to bite on it. We were ahead on this story. Where Colin was wrong. Esports, people watching people play video games, is not my cup of tea. But it got, on Fox, the iRacing is getting really nice numbers. I guess it's not just for kids in their basement eating pizza rolls. It looks like esports is getting decent numbers. Now, we don't have anything else right now, so we are sort of confined to our houses, and whatever's on that sports will take it. I don't get it. It's too sedentary for me. I don't get watching people watch and play a video game. I do not get it. But it's done pretty well in numbers. Where Colin was right. Cowboys signed Aldon Smith this week. Yeah, Aldon Smith that's been out of the league for 5 years. Domestic violence, drinking issues, real roll of the dice. Why? This is what happens when you pay people too much and pay people who aren't supposed to be paid yet early. The Cowboys and the Rams are having very similar trajectories. Very, very limited depth. Paying a lot of money for a handful of stars and then trying to swing for the fence to catch up. Aldon Smith is what you do, desperate. I'm sorry, it's a desperate move for a team that has paid too much or is overpaid or paid too early for players. And as I've said before, the Cowboys and the Rams, we saw it last year. The Cowboys are one injury away to one of their highly paid stars like Amari Cooper, DeMarcus Lawrence, of being a bad football team, of being second, third in their division. So I thought it was a desperate move by the Cowboys. This is what happens when you pay early and pay too much for stars. Where Colin was wrong. I've never seen Aaron Rodgers as a guy who's going to play into his 40s. I don't think he's as obsessed with football as, say, a Tom Brady. Not a knock on Brady, just a reality. I think Aaron Rodgers has a lot of interests, music, art, finance. He's traveling. He's just got a lot of interest. But he did say over the weekend to the Milwaukee State Journal that he plans to play into his 40s. He said, I'm not a cliche guy that's going to talk about it year after year after year after year. He said, but you know what? I got 4 years left, and if I play at a high level, I'm going to keep playing. So Aaron Rodgers has set it out there to say, listen, I'd like to play into my 40s. I've never seen Aaron as a guy. I think he's committed to football. I would never deny that, and I think he's still very, very good. I've never seen him as a guy that aspirationally needs football. I think he's a smart guy that's got a lot of interest. It's actually good for the NFL. He's a good talking point.
Where Colin was right?
Jadeveon Clowney, still in the market. I like defensive players, but there's very few in the NFL that I would pay big money for. Aaron Donald, I'd pay big money. Stephon Gilmore, corner, I'd pay big money. Ed Reed in his prime, I'd pay big money. Troy Polamalu. But Jadeveon Clowney, again, he's a highlight reel, but he's not a consistent pass rusher, never had double-digit sacks, had some injury stuff. Look at who is on the market. It's a lot of defensive guys right now. We'll talk about Cam Newton. It's a lot of defensive guys who are talented. People just don't want to pay for them. And also, the defensive side of the football is more physical. You blow stuff up, right? You just put your head down and blow stuff up. The reality is guys get hurt more. And so the Jadeveon Clowney on the market, outside of Seattle, not huge interest. Pay for quarterback, left tackle, a great corner, then there's very few people I'm paying for in the NFL.
Where Colin was wrong.
Tom Brady, I figured with Tom Brady, he could care less about his number. I mean, Kobe changed his number, LeBron's changed his number, Michael Jordan's changed his number. Tom Brady is not going to change his number. Wide receiver Chris Godwin, clearly feeling a little bit of heat, decided to give Tom Brady his number. Now, I'm not a sports traditionalist, so I had no problem Brady going down there and wearing 14 or 10. Derek Jeter wore 2. If he'd have worn 8, I'm okay. I'm not a guy that cares about, if Michael Jordan can change numbers, I'm totally okay with anybody changing numbers, but Brady got the number he wanted.
Where Colin was right.
Finally, I almost feel guilty because this is too easy, but, we have no sports, so Gronk, as predicted, is probably the single greatest fit as an athlete becoming a pro wrestler. Personality, goofiness, quirkiness, size, looks, energy, body. In my life, we said this guy was made for WWE, and he got a title this weekend, the 24/7 championship. Even his name, Gronk, Rock, The Rock, Stone Cold, Gronk. This one's too easy to take a right for, but in the history of sports, there's never been an athlete that you looked at and went, oh, that's a pro wrestler, who's faking it as a tight end. He's really a pro wrestler first, who just happens to be one of the 3 best tight ends I've ever seen in my life.